Do you remember when Robert Eggers brought us The Witch, and it was that different type of horror? Now, I didn't get that one at first, but I appreciated it so much more after additional watches. Well, a new witch story is hitting theaters called You Won't Be Alone. I got to see it at Sundance this year, so is it going to take multiple watches for this one to be appreciated? In an isolated mountain village in 19th century Macedonia, a young girl is taken from her mother and transformed into a witch by an ancient, shape-shifting spirit. Alright, so this is definitely an art house film. It's filled with lots of beautiful and contemplative shots that are then presented in this almost square aspect ratio. Now, if you're an animal lover, there is a lot of gruesomeness that involves animals. And heck, I mean, there's just a lot of gruesomeness to this movie overall. You are not going to want to be eating while watching this because it is pretty nasty in the imagery. If you watch Fresh on Hulu and you were sort of grossed out by that, that film has nothing on this one. Now, this is a really interesting take on a witch story. It's also not your traditional horror, which I appreciate. While there are horror aspects to it, there's also a sweetness and even a purity to some portions. And I think it sits more in the drama genre than really anything, but it doesn't let us forget that even in drama, horrifying elements can still be ever present. I loved the performances within this. Noomi Rapace is wonderful as she takes on a persona of innocence and then ignorance. I mean, she's basically starting from zero with her character when it comes to behavior, and she executes that with surprising ease. Her eyes capture an inquisitiveness, but also a simplicity, which is made all the more convincing because her character just doesn't speak. And the same goes for Sara Klimoska, Carloto Cotta, and Alice Englert. And each of them has to portray someone who looks like they're experiencing everything for the very first time, but doesn't also come across as an idiot or some simpleton. They have to emote curiosity and innocence, but with an edge. Because, I mean, even though these characters may be gentle looking, they're not helpless. And even though Rapace is one of the top billed in this, she really has a surprisingly small amount of screen time. I mean, she chews it up when she's there, but when I first saw the marketing material before I actually saw the film, I thought that she was really going to have the majority of a presence. Most of the dialogue in this story comes in the form of the character Navina's thoughts, which is spoken in a voiceover, making this a quieter story to experience. Even with the sweetness and the beauty that comes with this, there's also a brutality and darkness that follows the entire narrative. There's always this sense of despair and then dread that's permeating everything. And of course, I mean, there is a twisted nature also to the whole thing. The theme of the story really revolves around loneliness and belonging. I mean, we watch Navina try again and again to find her place. And the successes and setbacks are emotionally captivating, and I found myself incredibly invested as the story went along. Loneliness is a powerful motivator within the story, which then also fuels all sorts of other actions. The cyclical nature of the characters and the story, I think, is put together really well. It's not obvious from the outset, but then becomes very apparent the more we watch. It's great to see an intelligent story written, and I love how it relies so much more on character actions and mannerisms than it really does on the dialogue. If these actors can't suck us in with their expressions, it's a total waste. And I was sucked in. Navina is on a journey, and even if we're not exactly sure what the point of it is at the outset, it's visually intriguing and then quietly engaging, which then held my attention for the hour and 48 minutes. Now, the music sometimes is a little overpowering within the scenes. It's not that it drowns out the dialogue that's there, but just that it comes on much stronger and louder than other music and sounds. And this isn't a constant occurrence though, but it is noticeable once it happens. But even with this, the score is beautiful and it's calming, sometimes even contradicting the visuals as they can be horrifying and grotesque. And when the score isn't playing, the sound design is very immersive. Because the setting is a countryside where farmers and simple villagers live, the film captures the awesome natural ambience of the outdoors. I mean, we hear wind rustling through leaves, harvesters swinging their sickles through grass. I mean, even the brushing of handmade brooms across dirt floors. All of it works to build out and then enhance the visuals. And the cinematography is stunning. And while this almost square aspect ratio did take a moment to get used to, I quickly didn't even notice it because I was being sucked in by the way that the characters, the setting, and even the light were being captured. Now, there are times where the depth of focus is pretty shallow, so we get this really great bokeh effect in the background of the characters. But then there are also times where everything is clearly in focus and we get to see just the beauty or maybe even the treachery of a landscape. And I love how the aspect ratio is actually utilized in the framings to create intimacy or distance. I mean, sometimes there are shots where characters are almost miniaturized on the screen because of just how it was captured. It really just creates this ton of vertical space within the frame. This movie is certainly not going to be for everybody. I mean, not only is the imagery off putting and even grotesque at times, the story is a slower and quieter one to take in. I was hooked though by the storytelling, and it didn't feel like it drug on at all. The visuals are nasty at points, but they also work so well to build out the story of somebody who's just looking to belong. The self realization Navina has of what she is and then what it means for her, I think is powerful, and it creates a character journey that is both hopeful and then heartbreaking. The cinematography, the score, and the sound design all work to enhance the performances of the actors, each bringing an innocence and fierceness to their characters. I mean, if you're into different but beautiful different, you might really enjoy this. There's sex, lots of nudity, no profanity, and a ton of brutal and grotesque violence. I give You Won't Be Alone 4 out of 5 couches. What's a favorite art house movie of yours? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.